Rock on, all you wonderful people of the world, and welcome back to the second track here for the show we like to call Got the Podlife. We had very good reception from the very first track there, talking all about the music of Korn. We thought we'd come back at you right away. It's October time. I'm Bobby Munson, and right there beside me, or kind of perpendicular angle, somewhere around that, it's the gold standard, Carl Carafel. Carl, how are you doing? And welcome back, brother.
I am doing absolutely fantastic. I'm super happy for this next artist or band that we're going to be talking about. Another one of my favorites, as I know you are a fan of them as well. So this is going to be exciting.
There's stories that shall be told during this one for sure. So we're going to be talking about the music of the mighty Slipknot. A band that comes out of Des Moines, Iowa, kind of came out of nowhere in around the late 90s, playing at Ozfest and merely making a quick name for themselves, being a band of 9 different people up on stage with their crazy antics, their matching red jumpsuits, and their very intricate, scary masks that they wore at the time that have evolved over the years. Slipknot were somebody to be reckoned with, but they weren't immediately that original 9 guys. There was actually a band prior to that, still under the name of Slipknot, with a different singer, one by the name of Anders, that led the group at the time, when Joey Jordison, who would inevitably become the band's drummer for quite some time, was actually the guitar player at such a time, only taking over eventually when he realized that no other drummers could quite live up to what he knew he was capable of and what he would inevitably become, which was one of the greatest modern day heavy metal drummers.
Oh, definitely 100%. Can we talk for a minute, like about 9 people?
Oh yeah, we can.
9 people composing a band all together. Now, if you don't know Slipknot, they are very theatrical when they kind of do their performances, when they're live on stage, stuff like that. So, I mean, you've got guys that are, guitarists, a bassist, a drummist. You've got, percussion in there as well, right? So you've got not just the drums, but you've got percussion as well. You've got somebody on turntables. You've got somebody doing samples. You've got... just gonna say the name. You got Clown that's going out there just causing a ruckus, even still playing, going out there causing a ruckus. For 9 people, that seems like a lot, but they really make it work.
They really do. Their stage show is one of the most amazing. I have been 3 times now. 3 times that I have seen the mighty Slipknot. Once was a very smaller venue, which is kind of cool. Like, I've seen them twice at the arena here in Saskatoon. I've seen them once in Edmonton as well too, and in the Edmonton arena, I believe it was called the Shaw Center at the time. Any of our Edmonton friends can confirm this. It's still large, but it kind of comes across more like a gymnasium. So when I was up there for this, and this was during the Volume 3 tour, we'll talk about Volume 3 once we go through the list here, I'm right up at the front of this thing. And it gets to the point where they're playing Surfacing, and we all know, as Slipknot fans, this is where they want everybody to sit down on the floor so they can do the jump the fuck up part of the song.
Yeah.
So I'm like, you know what? I kind of want to see what happens if I don't sit down on the floor. So I decided...
front and center as well, you're saying.
Oh, yeah. I was calling for it. I wanted to call for it. I wanted to see what would happen. So, of course, I'm standing there, and they're screaming at me to sit the fuck down. And so all of a sudden, Clown, in that surgical bandage mask that he had at the time, comes right up to the railing, right in front of me, grabs my wrists, and it's, "You either sit down now or I'll make you sit down." And his forehead is pressed right against my forehead. I'm like, yes, sir. That's when I decided to sit down. I wanted that experience. I knew I could draw it, had to try to go for it, and I did.
Jeez, that's insane. And especially having it like a smaller venue to do that. I've only seen them once, and I didn't have a small venue at all. I'm wearing the shirt from where I saw them, 2015, Columbus, Ohio, Rock on the Range. 30,000 other people inside of this arena, including stands and GA floor. Um, Dude, it was my first experience seeing them live. I will never in my life forget that.
Oh, it is quite the experience. Again, when I say I've seen them 3 times, both the first 2 times were Saskatoon and Edmonton, kind of within a week of each other,
Okay.
because they had announced Edmonton, not Saskatoon at the time. So I bought tickets, rented got a hotel room booked, everything planned for an Edmonton trip, and then they say Saskatoon, and I'm like, well, then I'm going to both. So I
Yeah.
got a ticket to the one in Saskatoon as well too. So I got to experience both the arena style version of the tour and then of course that close up version that didn't have the same level of pyro or effects that they would have had that when they did that. Not to say there was a lot of pyro in that show. There was some, but there was way more pyro when they did Knot Fest in 2022 when the wife and I went to see them here in Saskatoon. It was a much more wild, over the top, explosive type show this time around.
That's the same experience that I had, the wild over the top type of experience at Rock on the Range. I mean, it's done in a inside of a soccer pitch, essentially, is what the arena is. Map First Stadium is where it happens, and used to happen. Rock on the Range is no longer. It's now something different. It's called Sonic Temple, but still the same area that they go into with Mapfer. Uh, Absolutely insane the amount of stuff that they could do with pyro included in that show because it is essentially an outdoor show. They were able to do so much more. And I mean, jeez. So one of the biggest takeaways from the Slipknot show for me with the theatrics had to have been with the drums. So
Oh yeah.
now with you, did I hope that you maybe got the kind of same experience where the drums seem to have been on a scissor lift that kind of rose up, started spinning around as they're playing. For me, I had never seen a band do that before, and it blew me away.
Yeah, and of course, like that was the experience. I have seen that from them. I've seen it from a few bands, but I have seen it from them as well too. Uh, that contraption is fantastic, and playing drums at the best of times, it's got to be hard. But being flipped sideways, upside down, whatever it is,
Yeah.
plus spinning on top of it, like kudos to whoever. Was it Joey or was it the new drum? I hate to say it, Jay. I think Jay Weinberg is the new drummer, is he?
Yeah, I believe Jay is the new drummer. I'm pretty sure that it was Joey.
Okay.
Pretty sure. I could be
2015.
wrong. 2015, yeah.
Ooh.
So maybe not if it was
Maybe not.
2015.
No, hold on. No, you know what? I think Joey had been replaced prior to that.
I think
Because
so as
wasn't
well.
Joey replaced right around the time that they were also replacing Paul Gray due to Paul's passing?
Yes, that is correct. So the group decided they came back 2014. They parted ways with Joey in 2013. And they came back in 2014 with Alessandro and Jay on Alessandro on bass and Jay on drums.
That's what I figured.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay.
That's had to check my notes.
Yeah. No, perfect. No, it's always good to check those notes. And hopefully people are checking the note at the bottom that this show is a pre-recorded show. So just make sure it's not that we won't get back to you. Leave us, comments, questions, anything you got in the comment section below, and Carl and I will reach back out to you. But this is pre-recorded, so we won't be able to get to you in a live capacity here today. Is it time, brother, we start going through this discography of the mighty Slipknot? Because we got a ways to go to get through this one.
Are you starting it with the pre-album, or are you starting it with the self-titled album?
Let's brief over the fact that there is an album in existence named Mate, Feed, Kill, Repeat that does not fall into the standard discography of Slipknot and is not the full-fledged Slipknot 9 that was to become. This Slipknot was the ones that featured Anders on vocals, not Corey Taylor, Joey Jordison on guitar. I can't remember what Clown was doing at the time, but there, it was a portion of Slipknot. Made, Feed, Kill, Repeat. A lot of the songs on there were reworked and then re-released as Slipknot under the self-titled album, which is exactly where we're going to go with that self-titled album. And so Slipknot, I was told about, like, you got to remember this, the old chat rooms of yesteryear in the 1990s, where you used to talk to people around the world in these little chats. It was, how many characters you could put in there, maybe a little funny picture if you had the ability of a scanner back at the time. But yeah, we had fun with them. And this is how I learned about some different music from people in the US. I have friends there that would share the same love for music as me. And I remember one of them recommending this band called Slipknot. So I went down to the local record store. Sure enough, the album had released, the self-titled album, managed to pick up a copy. And I forgot to do it, but I do have still 2 copies of the original self-titled album because there was a controversy, I don't know if you recall this, regarding 2 of the tracks on the original press of the self-titled album. This would be in the form of, I believe, Frail Limb Nursery, and I can't remember the name of the track that precedes it.
Punty.
There we go.
Yep.
They were eventually removed and replaced on a re-release version of the self-titled album. I do have both copies of that because I had the original press from when it first came out prior to that happening. And the difference in the cover is the original cover is just the band on it. It's just that picture of the band. If it's a re-released version, it has the name Slipknot across the top of the album.
Okay. And I need to correct myself. Purity, not Punty.
Yes,
I couldn't read my own writing here. Yes, Purity. I without going back and doing the research, I completely forgot about that. And it was interesting to come across that once again, to learn that 2 tracks had to be taken out after allegations of some copyright infringement.
Yeah.
So good for them to have removed those, but bad for others who may be coming into Slipknot a little later in the years and not really being able to experience those songs either, unless someone has it out there or has a file share program copy of it, right?
Well, yeah, and just to state that most of it comes from the fact that Frail Limb Nursery is not actually a song per se, is an actual recording. And the controversy became a little bit of copyright over the fact that this recording was found somewhere within the depths of the internet. I believe that there might have been something along the lines of believing it was to be true, but it ended up being something that was created as something to release out there per whoever had created it in the first place, kind of thing. So the band using it in the sense of trying to tell the story of what had happened, this discovery that they had made through this, I believe, and I'm spitballing here just from memory, but I believe it's somewhere along those lines. And then of course the song Purity that follows it is then the actual, I believe, song discussing and talking about the topic from the recording of Frail Limb Nursery, which is why the band was forced to remove the 2 from the album.
Yeah. And just to give everybody a little bit of a quick backstory on that, then, with Purity was inspired by a story that was published online about a girl named Purity Knight who was kidnapped and then ultimately buried alive. Now, this came from a website that was called Crime Scene, which presents fictional stories as real life crime cases. So much to the point that it really was believed to have been a true story, with Corey Taylor even saying, "I still believe that this is a real story." Yeah. So that was kind of why they kind of went down that road, and because it's something that's pretty messed up out there in the world, right? And Slipknot is, their music comes across as pretty messed up as it is. So it just fit, right? But
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
And I do want to say something too. When they came out with this album, and it went on this album and the couple of albums preceded, the videos that accompanied them at this time usually had some sort of theme reminiscent of a horror movie that was in existence at the time.
Yeah.
For example, Wait and Bleed was The Puppet Masters, Spit It Out was The Shining. I know that on the second album, Iowa, I believe, we'll get to the Left Behind, I believe was The Butcher Boy. And if I'm not mistaken, I'm losing track of names, and we're going a little too far ahead. But there was a central theme within the beginnings there of that. But really cool mention to Sean Crahan, I believe that's how it's pronounced, the clown in Slipknot, who does a lot of the band's artwork for the albums. He does a lot of the direction of their music videos and everything like that. Man is a genius when it comes to putting videos together. I mean, as long as you're okay to deal with some of the messed up vision of this man, but it is very cool, very interesting. He has quite the brain for this type of work.
Definitely does. And to be able to have that immortalized, let's say his artwork immortalized now in album cover form, or even just everything form. I mean, because they've taken all of this stuff and put it onto, coffee mugs, t-shirts, hats, sweaters, stickers, banners, posters, everywhere it is available out there. And that's a huge accomplishment that I think is absolutely amazing.
Yeah. Yeah, he does so much, including outside of the band, directing other bands' music videos as well, too. Like, for example, the song America by Motionless in White is directed by Clown from Slipknot. So
right,
go check that out as well. And there's been many others as well, too. I mean, he's also been very vocal in trying to get other bands signed, ones that he's come across that have done really well for him. If I'm not mistaken, he was even a producer on Mudvayne's LD50 album.
Okay, that I didn't know.
Yeah, very, very into what he does. I think, and including, in fact, it's his son and Corey Taylor's son that now have a band of their own named Vended. I'm not sure if you've checked them out yet, Carl.
Oh yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
They're getting better by the minute, too. Like,
they are.
Their most recent release was so good.
And you've pretty much made it when you're getting shouts from like Sean the Butcher and Jose Mangan, and Katie Babs, from Sirius XM, whether it's on Octane or Liquid Metal or anywhere that Sirius XM is, they're getting airplay there and really being like pumped up to everyone through them, which is amazing.
It really is. Yeah. So good for them. But back to the mighty, mighty Slipknot. Gotta ask you, when it comes to that self-titled album, what would be your standout? What's your standout track off that one?
Oh, definitely the standout is Wait and Bleed. That one, I mean, it just kind of, for me, is almost kind of like that song that you will play for a friend who's kind of into rock, but maybe not necessarily fully into the metal yet, or doesn't even know who Slipknot is. And you tell them, you know what, give me 2 minutes and 30 seconds of your time. Listen to this song, because that's all it is. It's 2 minutes and 30 seconds.
Yeah.
And I've had a lot of people kind of go, holy shit, I think I'm a fan just from that song. So for me, that's a standout.
It's definitely a standout. It's one to bring them in. Of course, it's tough between Surfacing and Spit It Out as well, too. Mm-hmm. And Spit It Out, I just love. Surfacing because of the sentiment of actually doing the whole jump the fuck up when we do it in the live concert setting
Right.
and everything. I mean, it's absolute madness when you're down on that floor and you do that. And it's one gigantic mosh pit that breaks
Oh
out
yeah.
before you. Like, you better be prepared because all hell breaks loose when you do that song in a live setting. So I got to go in that direction. But the whole album just hits very, very well. This is a memorable album for me growing up. I loved every second of it, played the hell out of it. And going back on it now, even, I'm like, this still is solid music throughout and very creative, ahead of its time, even.
It definitely is. And I mean, so there have been reissues, re-releases of this once the 10th anniversary came, to the point where they have included other tracks in there. The 10th anniversary edition has 25 tracks on it as opposed to the original 15. So they've added 10 more tracks into there. Just different kind of um, mixes, right? Or different versions of different things. Like Spit It Out has a couple of different versions. Sick has a different version. Wait and Bleed as well. So very cool. If you can get your hands on a copy of the 10th anniversary edition to hear those different mixes or versions of those songs, it's actually kind of really cool. It puts a different spin on it that you expect, but you don't expect, and you're happy with it nonetheless.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah. So big thumbs up on our end. Thanks for the first Slipknot album. That's going to be the case for a lot of this, I'm sure. But going over to the album number 2, and again, I got to mention this quick little tidbit is that when Iowa was coming out was around the same time that, the most divisive band in rock music today, Nickelback, were releasing Silver Side Up. And I believe that Roadrunner Records, according to Corey Taylor, used a lot of the money that Slipknot should have had that they made the company off of their self-titled album to help. They used that to promote Silver Side Up by Nickelback, as opposed to putting that funding into this next Slipknot album, known as Iowa and known to fans as maybe the best, not only Slipknot album of all time, but one of the best heavy metal albums of all time. This was not the same Slipknot by any means. This was a Slipknot that wanted to make a statement. They wanted to make a very heavy statement, and they wanted to prove just how far they could go with this thing. And man, they unleashed hell upon people in a very beautiful way with Iowa. And again, it's not quite my favorite, but it's pretty damn close. And it's really tough with some of these early albums of Slipknot's.
Yeah.
And we'll get to some of the latter ones as well too, but this is a masterpiece just as much as the first album in every sense of the word. This thing hits hard and heavy throughout almost all of it. And even when it's not hitting hard and heavy, the darker melodic tracks that bring it down at times are almost just, they're so down that you're just like, oh my God, something's going to happen. And when it comes back, it's an absolute face melter. Track after track after track. This is gold. This is total gold. And speaking of, like, you got My Plague, the Heretic Anthem, and Left Behind that were all songs that managed to become hits for the band off this one. They had videos of the company. I know that they were playing the late night talk shows with the Heretic Anthem as well, too, at the time. Yeah. Very surprising to see them. I believe it was on Conan O'Brien one evening, playing that live on Conan on national television. So the band had made it, but they made it under their own doing. They did it without the help from the record label.
100%. And I mean, we're going back 20 years. This was 2001 now that this album was released. And 20 years ago, yes, heavy metal was a thing. I mean, it was kind of coming into its own a little bit with this new age type of heavy metal. I mean, 90s into the 2000s, it really kind of gave us a huge transition from the 80s glam rock that people would have known as heavier music to what we're getting here. Absolutely 100% unequivocally fantastic. And you mentioned the Heretic album. Like that one was huge just because of the mainstream spotlight that it got. I don't remember. I could be wrong, but I don't really remember more mainstream than going on to a late night talk show to be able to do this. I believe Korn did do it as well. But this one just kind of is more memorable for me when it comes to that. This album, I know we're going to talk about, our takeaways from this one, but I'm going to put it out there right now. This album, track number 2, People Equals Shit.
When you need it, it's there.
Still to this day, I still quote that.
Yeah, when you're having a bad day, all you need to do is turn on that song and it's like a light switch. Everything feels so much better now. Yeah, I love it. I really do. And let's talk about our takeaway then, because, as much as it's easy to pick singles, and I kind of want to, because there's one here that stands out and I love the video that accompanies it, and that's in the form of Left Behind. I do like other things here a whole lot. And that, People Equal Shit being one of them, of course, too. It is a fantastic song, but I think Everything Ends is often overlooked. I think Everything Ends is just absolutely solid piece of work there, and love that track, especially in a live setting, and I've seen it in a live setting too. So.
I will be completely honest, I do not remember the set from 2015. I was just so excited to see Slipknot for the very first time I have brain issues, so it's kind of hard sometimes for me to remember things. I remember I was there. I know I was there. I know I got to see them live because it was that fantastic. But I don't remember hearing Everything Ends in a live setting, if they even did it. But solid track there. And then for me, Skin Ticket. Just another one of those songs that resonated with me, at least. And I know that Skin Ticket is kind of one of those ones that, people love it, people hate it. It's a real in-between type of song for people. I'm a fan of it. The whole album. Come on.
Yeah. I'm a fan of a lot of the things that tend to divide audiences sometimes. So there are some very interesting, like, I like unique stuff too. And I didn't turn on Slipknot into this next album like a lot of fans did. Don't get me wrong, this next album we're going to talk about, their third album, Volume 3, The Subliminal Verses, it divided some of the current audience that loved the progression that they made to Iowa. Volume 3 came in with something completely different. This was a Slipknot with a darker message to bring forward. There was no profanity, which you can't say that about any other album in their entire discography. It's hard to find a song, let alone an album, without the kind of colorful language that Slipknot is known for. But Volume 3 managed this, and it managed it very, very beautifully. And I'll argue that Volume 3, honestly, is possibly my favorite album from Slipknot. This was the one that a lot of critics started to say, like, this band was the real deal, because they weren't just giving you the same old. They were coming forward with something else. There was a lot more from the percussionists now. So you had Sean and Craig on percussion. Now they're coming out, they're doing backup vocals. They're doing a lot more pieces that stood out within this one. When they come out after Prelude 3.3 and come in with the Blister Exists, and you've got that memorable drum beat that they do in tandem, the dun, 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 dun. That whole thing is awesome. And when they came out on stage doing that with the drums draped over them in unison like a marching band, so good. And the fact that the band can boldly put two songs on here, one called Vermilion and one called Vermilion Part 2, and have them both equally be just as awesome as one another. And like, I mean, this album, it features, I mean, when you're talking about the hits from it, the songs that came out, Duality was a big hit for them. Before I forget, this was maybe their biggest mainstream hit yet to date. Before I forget, blew people's minds. Then you got Vermilion Part 1, Part 2, The Nameless, which was a big one as well too within this one. Just incredible. Absolutely incredible album, top to bottom. This is when I first saw them the first couple times. Talk a little on this one, Carl.
So from start to end, it was very different, yet still Slipknot. And the fact that they were able to go through, like you said, with no vulgarity throughout the entire album really speaks to knowing that you can do heavy metal and get it over with society. And I'm not just saying fans, I'm talking society, because they had radio play for Duality. They had radio play for Before I Forget. They had radio play still for Vermilion and Part 2.
Mm-hmm.
Those are still being played on some of the rock stations that are out there today. You can't really get that from their other albums, because their hits on the other albums really go into vulgarity, really drop those F-bombs, really talk about, we talked about the last album, People Equal Shit. There was no way that was going to be played on mainstream radio.
Don't think it was intended to either.
But for them to, and I don't know, and I would love to pick Corey's mind or any of them. I would love to pick any of their brains to be like, listen, when you guys did the Subliminal, was that intended to be for radio play? Is that what your intentions were? I don't know, but I would love to find out, because if so, dude, that is so smart.
The whole album screams to me of something that a band sat down and said, hey, let's prove that we can write one of the hit albums that people will talk about as, there are our big opus. This is the, something that the critics can even look back on and as a memorable moment in our path, this particular album, and talk so highly about it, about the hits off of it and all that kind of thing. I think, again, I'm just guessing, but you got to imagine the idea was we can prove we can do that and still be true to Slipknot at the exact same time. And that's what they did there.
Right. And you talked about kind of the criticalness of people, of fans when it came to this. And it didn't really just go to the fans. It really went to like the big names as well, where you're getting like the Rolling Stone that kind of gave it a 3 out of a 5. Right. So, I mean, just kind of that midway point, they're just kind of, whatever. 70% coming from Metacritic based on 12 different reviews. Entertainment Weekly gave it an A-, which is still pretty damn good.
Yep.
So you had like even these large conglomerates that are very influential when it comes to music and what really does get heard. Even they are on different wavelengths when it came to this album. I am a huge fan of this album. I think that there is so much takeaway from this. And, Metal Hammer 2009 called it one of the best albums of the decade. So, I think over time, this album has really started to grow on a lot of people, and you're getting a lot more. Again, I'm going to come back to the being played on radio stations. And I think because of that, you're getting a lot more people going to look at the album, going to buy the album, enjoying the album, which is then in turn making better numbers, more money coming in from the album, more people enjoying Slipknot to create it as one of the best of that decade.
Yeah, for sure. So